Richard, from his early beginning, his early roots, he loved racing, and he did the soapbox derby. He did whatever he could. He started racing Grand American cars in 1969, and that was the beginning of Richard Childress Racing. The things that he was able to do, he did them on his own. He didn't have a lot of help. He didn't have finances. He worked for it. Desire, dedication, sacrifice, all the things that you can think about. That's Richard Childress. He had that desire, that determination, not to live on what we had done, but always look into the future. Here at the Richard Childress Racing Museum, we have our wildlife and conservation area. We support Ducks Unlimited, National Wild Turkey Federation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and the North Carolina Wildlife Habitat Foundation. By doing that, work has gone on to be able to bring elk back into the mountains of North Carolina. It takes folks like Richard Childress that work very, very hard for conservation to be able to go out and see the animals, to be able to go out and hunt. You think about Richard Childress being in the jungle, or maybe in the mountains, or wherever it's at, and he's hunting, with some of these vicious animals. But yet I've seen Dale Earnhardt come in here and put a mouse in his pocket and make him scream like a girl.
Richard grew up in North Carolina in what was once a very agricultural state. We're losing it a lot now. So what he wanted to do is preserve a little bit of that agriculture for the next generation, not only in his family, but in other families and their ability to retain the family farm. People say, well, why is it so easy to work with Richard, for you and Richard to collaborate? And it's very simply that the wine is very important to Richard. For Richard, it's not just a tagline, hey, I'm into wine, or I'm a race guy that's into wine. The minute he walks into this winery, he has a glass of wine in his hand, and he appreciates it. And Richard's, the smells, the taste, what it takes to put this together, what it takes to grow the grape. For a person of passion in what we do, Richard not only has it in racing, he truly has it in wine. And that's why I agreed to come onto the project with Richard. It's like standing at the Grand Canyon overlooking this beautiful view by yourself. You need to share it. It's only beautiful if you can share it. The connection that Richard had with Forsyth Tech, I didn't know about until my sons got interested in going to Forsyth Tech. And I went and sat in on the orientation, and the guy kind of boasted about all this stuff with Richard Childress. And I thought, oh, this is kind of pretty cool, though. Although my sons aren't interested specifically in, car racing and manufacturing, they're more, I'm hoping to lean them to the wine side. That's kind of Richard's left side. He's got a left and a right. Richard is really not what I would look at if I were to say what are his characteristics. He's not a manager, he's a leader. And I think the difference between a manager and a leader is that a manager, kind of tells you what to do and then checks up on you and makes sure you're doing what they want you to do. Richard, as a leader, does almost the opposite, where he's very charismatic, and he inspires you to do not what he wants you to do, but what's the best of you.
He is constantly driven to do better. He's constantly driven to make what he's involved with better. Everybody that works for him, it's got to fall back on them a little bit, because if we look in the corner office and we see how hard Richard's working, we've got no reason not to try to work as hard as he does. We don't necessarily always do that, but we sure give it a try.
We look back into the success of Richard Childress Racing, and we kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Richard had been looking around for a while to try to find something that a great cause, and that was pediatric trauma.
The Institute is a part of the giving back side of Richard Childress. He's heard of the need that exists for children, which is the injury turns out to be the #1 killer of kids, and decided that just can't